February 19th, 1941. Madrid, Spain. Juan Pujol Garcia stands outside the British embassy on Calle de Fernando el Santo, watching diplomats pass through the iron gates. It's the fifth time he's tried to offer his services. The fifth time he's been turned away. The 28-year-old former chicken farmer doesn't look like a spy. He's short, unremarkable, with thinning hair and round spectacles that make him appear more clerk than operative. His business ventures have all failed. The chicken farm, the cinema management scheme, even his attempts at hotel ownership. But Juan Pujol has something more valuable than success. He has hatred for fascism and an imagination that won't quit. "They think I'm a fantasist," he mutters to his wife, Araceli, that evening in their cramped Madrid apartment. Around them, the walls are covered with maps of Britain, maps he's never visited, depicting a country he's only read about in travel guides and magazines. "Then show them you're not," Araceli says quietly. She's 23, dark-haired, and the only person who believes in her husband's increasingly desperate scheme. Juan spreads a Portuguese tourist guide across their kitchen table. Beside it, a British railway timetable he purchased from a bookshop, a French blue guide to England. These are his weapons. These and an audacious plan that any sane person would call suicide. "If the British won't hire me," he says, tracing his finger along a map of Liverpool, "then I'll make the Germans hire me first." 3 weeks later, Juan walks into the Abwehr office in Madrid. The Abwehr, Hitler's military intelligence service, operates from an elegant building in the Salamanca district. Juan has rehearsed his pitch for days. He tells the interviewing officer, a man named Friedrich Knapperate, that he's a fanatically pro-Nazi Spanish government official with access to diplomatic channels. He claims he can travel to Britain and establish a spy network. Knapperate is skeptical. Spain is crawling with con artists looking to fleece the Germans, but something about this earnest little man intrigues him. Juan speaks with such conviction, such detailed knowledge of British affairs. He produces a Spanish diplomatic passport, genuine, obtained through a contact in the foreign ministry. "And you're willing to travel immediately?" Knapperate asks. "I leave for London next week." Juan lies smoothly. In reality, Juan Pujol Garcia will never set foot in Britain. Not yet. But the Germans don't need to know that. By July 1941, Juan is living in Lisbon, Portugal, sending his first intelligence reports to Madrid. The Abwehr believes their new agent, codenamed Arabelle, is operating from London. They have no idea he's sitting in a Lisbon boarding house, fabricating every word. His method is brilliantly simple. He studies British newspapers available in Lisbon, weeks-old copies of the Times, the Daily Telegraph. He memorizes the Blue Guide's descriptions of British cities. He invents sources, a pilot in the RAF, a Ministry of Information clerk, a railway worker in Glasgow. His first report describes troop movements in Liverpool. Juan has never seen Liverpool. He bases his description on a grainy photograph from a 1938 travel brochure. The Abwehr eats it up. Arabelle reports significant convoy activity in northwest ports. The Madrid station cables to Berlin. His network is expanding rapidly. In his Lisbon room, Juan types furiously on a portable typewriter, creating an entire fictional world. Hanan D. invents a Venezuelan living in Glasgow, a Swiss businessman in Bootle, a Portuguese commercial traveler in South Wales. Each sub-agent has a backstory, a personality, a reason for accessing information. The letters flow to Madrid in invisible ink, smuggled through the Portuguese mail. Juan demands money for his growing network. The Abwehr pays willingly, $340,000 over the course of the war, an astronomical sum. But there's a problem Juan doesn't anticipate. In December 1941, his fabricated report about a convoy sailing from Malta reaches German U-boat command. Submarines move to intercept. They find nothing. The convoy doesn't exist because Juan invented it based on outdated newspaper clippings. The Abwehr begins to have doubts. Too many of Arabel's reports don't check out. His intelligence on Liverpool shows fundamental errors. He claims the port has no bars because he's confused British licensing laws with prohibition. He reports soldiers carrying rations in the streets when such things are strictly controlled. In Madrid, Canaparati receives an order from Berlin. Investigate Arabel, possible fraud. But before they can act, British intelligence makes contact. MI5 has been monitoring Juan's reports through ultra-intercepts, Britain's top-secret program for reading German military codes. They've realized something extraordinary. This Spanish fantasist, working alone from Portugal, has convinced the Germans he's running a spy network in Britain. And his reports, while wildly inaccurate, are useless to the Germans, but harmless to Britain. An idea begins to form in the minds of MI5's 20 committee, the group responsible for running double agents. What if they could recruit this man? What if, instead of inventing intelligence from Lisbon, he could create it from London, with British help? Section 2. The recruitment, April 24, 1942. Lisbon, Portugal. The knock comes at 9:47 in the evening. Juan Pujol freezes mid-sentence, his pen hovering over another fictional report about Scottish troop deployments. Araceli looks up from nursing their infant son, her eyes wide with fear. In wartime Lisbon, a neutral city crawling with spies from every nation, unexpected visitors mean danger. Senor Garcia? The voice through the door is British accented but speaks Spanish. My name is Jean Riso Gill. I'm with the British Embassy. We should talk. Juan's hand trembles as he opens the door. The man in the corridor is trim, 40-ish, with the careful posture of a military officer trying to look civilian. Behind his pleasant smile, his eyes are conducting an assessment. Mes seats, aye? Riso Gill gestures inside. What Juan doesn't know is that Riso Gill is MI6's deputy station chief in Lisbon. For months, British intelligence has been reading Juan's reports to the Germans through intercepted Abwehr communications. They've watched this unknown Spaniard build an entirely fictional spy network. They've seen Berlin's growing trust in their agent Arabel. And they've recognized something remarkable. This amateur has a gift for deception that trained intelligence officers couldn't replicate. We know what you're doing, Riso Gill says quietly, settling into Juan's only chair. The chicken farming business that failed, the 5 times you approached our embassy, your current employment with German intelligence. Juan's face drains of color. This is the moment he's dreaded. Exposure, arrest, possibly execution if the Germans find out. I can explain, he begins. Riso Gill holds up a hand. We're not here to arrest you, Senor Garcia. We're here to offer you a job. Over the next 2 hours, Riso Gill lays it out. British intelligence wants to bring Juan to London. They'll help him continue his deception, but with real resources. Professional forgers for documents. Writers to help craft reports. Most importantly, accurate information mixed with carefully crafted lies. The Germans trust you, Riso Gill explains. That trust is more valuable than gold. But your reports from Lisbon are creative, too creative. Eventually, Berlin will realize you've never set foot in Britain. Juan listens, his mind racing. This is what he's wanted all along, to fight Hitler, to matter in this war. But there's risk. If the Germans discover the deception, every double agent in Britain will be compromised. If the British decide he's a German plant, he could vanish into a prison cell. Why should you trust me? Juan asks finally. Risogil smiles. Because you've been trying to fight this war for over a year, without payment, without recognition, with nothing but imagination and a typewriter. That's not the profile of a German agent. That's the profile of a very stubborn, very brave idealist. He slides a photograph across the table. It shows a pleasant house in North London, suburban and anonymous. This will be your home. We'll establish cover employment. Your wife and child will be safe, and you'll continue your reports to Madrid. But this time, Senor Garcia, you'll have the full resources of His Majesty's government behind you. Juan looks at Araceli. She nods once. When do we leave? He asks. April 30th, 1942. RAF transport flight, approaching London. Juan presses his face against the cold window of the converted bomber, watching England materialize through broken clouds. After inventing this country for nearly a year, its cities, its trains, its people, he's finally seeing it with his own eyes. The reality is both familiar and utterly foreign. Liverpool exists, just as the guidebooks showed, but darker, greenier, scarred by bombing. The Thames winds through London like a silver thread, but the city sprawls far larger than any map suggested. They land at an airfield whose name no one tells him. A Morris 8 sedan drives him through blacked-out streets to a safe house in Beitulf, Hendon. Two men wait inside. Thomas Harris, an art dealer turned MI5 case officer, and Cyril Mills, a former circus owner who now runs agents for the security service. Harris is urbane, cultured, fluent in Spanish. Mills is practical, direct, ex-military. Together, they'll become Juan's handlers, his protectors, his collaborators in the greatest deception of the war. First things first, Harris says, pouring sherry into 3 glasses despite the late hour. We need to reorganize your network. He spreads papers across the dining table. Juan's own reports, intercepted and decoded by British intelligence. Seeing them like this, printed and analyzed, Juan realizes how amateurish some of his inventions were. The Venezuelan in Glasgow is good, Mills notes. He stays, but this Portuguese commercial traveler. He taps the page. You have him traveling from South Wales to Liverpool in 4 hours. The rail connections don't work. The Germans will spot it eventually. Juan feels heat rise in his face. I used a 1938 timetable. We know, Harris interrupts gently. Which is why we're here. From now on, every detail will be perfect. Every train schedule accurate. Every location verified. We'll even create ration books for your fictional agents. Over the next 3 weeks, they work 18-hour days. Juan's network of imaginary sub-agents is restructured, refined, made bulletproof. The Venezuelan becomes Agent 3. They add a Greek deserter working in a munitions factory, a British fascist in the Ministry of Information, a Welshman with access to Swansea docks. Each agent gets a complete identity, national insurance numbers, ration cards, even backstories about their families. Harris's forgery team creates documents so perfect that they'd fool British authorities, let alone German intelligence. The key, Harris explains, is consistency. These people must live and breathe in your imagination. When you write about Agent 3, you must know what he ate for breakfast, what pub he drinks in, whether he's worried about his mother in Caracas. Juan nods, scribbling notes. This is what he tried to do in Lisbon, but now he has professionals, helping him build the architecture of lies. On May 15th, they send his first report from British soil. It describes convoy preparations in Liverpool. Real information, carefully selected to be valuable, but not damaging. Mixed in are false details about timing and destinations. 3 days later, the Abwe response arrives via wireless. Excellent work. Arabelle confirmed as first-class agent. Financial bonus authorized. In the Hendon safe house, Mills opens champagne. "Gentlemen," he says, raising his glass to Juan, "Germany's best spy in Britain is now working for us. Let's make sure they never figure it out." Juan Garcia Pujol, soon to receive his British code name, Garbo, smiles. For the first time since this mad adventure began, he allows himself to believe it might actually work. July 12, 1942, Jermyn Street, London. Thomas Harris watches Juan pace the elegant office, gesturing wildly as he describes his latest invention. Outside, morning traffic rumbles through St. James's, but inside this converted art gallery turned MI5 operations center, they're building a fictional universe that German intelligence believes is real. "Agent 7 must die," Juan announces dramatically. Harris looks up from the decoded Abwehr message he's reviewing. "I beg your pardon?" "Agent 7, the Welshman in Swansea. He's become problematic." Juan consults his meticulous handwritten ledger, a master document tracking every fictional subagent, their locations, their activities, their relationships. The Germans are asking him to report on convoy movements he cannot possibly observe without arousing suspicion. If he keeps providing intelligence, the port authorities would arrest him. If he stops, Berlin will suspect he's compromised. Harris leans back, intrigued. This is why Garbo has become invaluable. His instinct for narrative logic, for maintaining the believability of his phantom network. "So we kill him?" "Illness," Juan says firmly. "Agent 7 develops pneumonia. He's hospitalized. After 2 weeks of increasingly worried messages, he dies. We even send flowers to his fictional funeral. The Germans will accept it. People die in wartime. It removes him from play without compromising the network." Cyril Mills, entering with a tray of tea, overhears and grins. "Brilliant! Though we should expense the funeral flowers. Don't want Jerry getting suspicious about Garbo's finances. This is how they work now, a peculiar collaboration between a Spanish dreamer and British intelligence professionals. Every Monday morning they review the week's requirements, what information the Abwehr has requested, what deceptions the 20 committee wants to plant, what operational details need protecting. Juan's network has grown to 27 sub-agents, each with elaborate cover stories. Agent 1 is a Portuguese commercial traveler based in Newport. Agent 2 is a German-Swiss businessman in Bootle. Agent 3, the Venezuelan, has recruited his own sub-network in Glasgow. Agent 4 runs a radio operation in London. The ledger in Juan's hand is 40 pages long, tracking every detail. Agent 5's mistress works at the War Office. Agent 6 is a South African serving with the RAF. Agent 7, soon to die of pneumonia, has a brother in the Merchant Navy. None of them exist. All of them are paid by the Abwehr. The problem, Harris says, scanning the monthly financial report, is that Berlin is transferring $8,000 a month for your network's operations. We're collecting it through Lisbon cutouts, But that's an enormous sum. Eventually, someone in German, accounting will ask where it's all going. Juan doesn't hesitate. Expenses. Agent 2's business required emergency capital after a warehouse fire. Invented, of course. Agent 3's gambling debts needed covering to maintain his access to dock workers. Agent 5 demanded a bonus after providing that convoy intelligence. We must make them seem greedy, unreliable, expensive. Real agents are always trouble. Mills nods approvingly. Make yourself look barely in control. Makes it believable. What makes Garbo's network uniquely valuable isn't just the false intelligence it feeds Berlin, it's the true intelligence mixed in. The 20 Committee has developed a sophisticated system, provide accurate information that Germany would learn anyway, but too late to act on. Report real convoy departures, but after the ships have safely reached port. Describe genuine military units, but after they've moved to new positions. This establishes credibility. Berlin cross-checks Garbo's reports against their other sources. U-boat sightings, aerial reconnaissance, signals intelligence. When his information consistently matches reality, their trust deepens. This is the art of it, Harris explains to Juan during one of their sessions. 90% truth, 10% poison. The truth makes them trust you. The poison kills them. September 3rd, 1942. Crespigny Road Safe House, Hendon. Juan sits at his desk in the converted bedroom that serves as Garbo's office, drafting a report that will change how the 20 Committee uses double agents. His fingers fly across the typewriter. Keys, creating a message that seems routine but contains a deadly trap. Agent 3, the Venezuelan in Glasgow, reports seeing extensive preparations for a large convoy assembly. Dozens of merchant ships gathering in the Clyde. Troop carriers. Destroyer escorts. The intelligence suggests a major operation. Every word is true. Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa, is being prepared. Ships are gathering. But Juan's report is carefully timed to arrive in Berlin, too late for the Germans to reposition forces. He sends the message on November 2nd, 1942. The torch landings begin November 8th. On November 7th, one day before the invasion, Juan sends a frantic follow-up message. Urgent. Agent 3 reports massive convoy departing Clyde heading south. Estimate 70-plus vessels. Possible Mediterranean operation. The message is delayed, accidentally, by MI5's radio operators. It doesn't reach Berlin until November 9th, after Allied forces are already ashore in Morocco and Algeria. The Abwehr's response, intercepted by Ultra, is incandescent with frustration. Your report excellent but late. Such intelligence must be transmitted immediately. Why delay? Juan's reply is a masterpiece of wounded dignity. Agent 3 delivered information November 5th as he departed Glasgow. I transmitted immediately upon receipt. Perhaps radio conditions or your receiving station caused delay? I cannot be held responsible for technical failures beyond my control. Suggest your people investigate. The genius of the response is that it shifts blame to German communications, which are indeed sometimes unreliable. Berlin backs down, apologizes, and increases Garbo's operational budget as compensation. But the real victory is subtler. Garbo has now established that his network can provide genuine, war-changing intelligence. He reported Operation Torch. He was accurate. The fact that the report arrived too late wasn't his fault. Berlin's trust is now absolute. They're hooked, Mills says, reading the intercepted German messages. They think they have the best spy network in Britain, and they're furious with their own communications for not getting the intelligence in time. Harris smiles thinly. Which means, when we need them to believe something truly important, they'll listen. The question is, what do we want them to believe? Juan looks up from his typewriter. That depends. What's coming next? We don't know yet, Harris admits. But when Churchill and Roosevelt decide to invade Europe, really invade, not a sideshow in North Africa, we'll need Germany looking the wrong direction. Then we start preparing now, Juan says. We expand the network. More agents, more sources, more credibility. When the time comes, Germany must believe Garbo without question. Mills pours whiskey into 3 glasses despite the early hour. To Agent 7, he toasts. Dead of pneumonia at age 34. Mourned by no one, existed for no one. May all our agents be as convincing. Juan raises his glass. In his ledger, he's already crossed out Agent 7's name. By next week, he'll invent Agent 7's replacement. Perhaps a widow who knew the Welshman, who's inherited his contacts, who can provide even better intelligence. The network never stops growing, and Berlin never stops believing. January 14th, 1944. Cabinet War Rooms, Whitehall, London. Juan Pujol Garcia sits in an underground conference room, surrounded by men who plan the fate of nations. The concrete walls are painted institutional green. Maps of Europe cover every surface. At the head of the table sits Lieutenant Colonel John Bevan, controller of London Controlling Section, the organization responsible for strategic deception across all theaters of war. This is the first time Garbo has been brought into the inner sanctum. For 2 years, he's operated from safe houses, his handlers acting as intermediaries. But what's being planned now is too important for second-hand communication. Gentlemen, Bevan begins, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 secrets. What we discuss in this room will determine whether the invasion of France succeeds or fails, whether hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers live or die. He nods to an aide who unfurls a large map of northwestern Europe. Red pins mark the French coastline from Brittany to the Netherlands. Operation Overlord will land 5 divisions on the Normandy beaches on June 5th, weather permitting. Bevan taps the map. But Germany has 60 divisions in France, and the Low Countries. If even half of those reach Normandy in the first 48 hours, we'll be pushed back into the sea. Juan studies the map, understanding dawning. This is why he's here. Our job, Bevan continues, is to ensure those divisions stay exactly where they are, to convince Hitler and the German High Command that Normandy is a feint, a diversion, that the real invasion will come here. He taps Pas-de-Calais, 200 miles northeast of the actual target. Weeks later, with armies we don't actually have. Thomas Harris speaks up. This is Operation Fortitude, the largest deception operation in military history, and Garbo is the linchpin. Around the table, other case officers shift uncomfortably. They run their own double agents, Brutus, Tricycle, Treasure, each feeding pieces of the deception to the Germans. But everyone in this room knows Garbo is different. Berlin trusts him more than any other source. We've spent 2 years building your credibility, Bevan says directly to Juan. Your network has provided Germany with hundreds of accurate reports. You've earned their absolute confidence. Now we're going to spend that credibility all at once. He slides a document across the table. Juan reads the outline of what Garbo will report over the coming months. A massive army group, the 1st U.S. Army Group, or FUSAG, is assembling in southeastern England under the command of General George Patton. 45 divisions, thousands of tanks, an invasion force aimed squarely at Pas-de-Calais, the shortest route to Germany. None of it is real. FUSAG exists only on paper, in radio traffic, in dummy tanks made of inflatable rubber, in the reports of double agents. But if Germany believes it's real, they'll keep their strongest divisions in Pas-de-Calais, waiting for an invasion that will never come. Your network will be the primary source for FUSAG intelligence, Harris explains. Agent 3 in Glasgow will report Scottish divisions moving south. Agent 7A, the widow who replaced your dead Welshman, will see American tank formations near Dover. Agent 5's mistress will overhear War Office gossip about Patton's command. Juan's mind is already working through the logistics. How many reports? What timeline? Starting February, escalating through May, Bevan says. Small details at first, insignia sightings, unit designations, then larger pieces, troop concentrations, landing craft in Dover Harbor. Everything points to Pas-de-Calais. And after the real landing? Juan asks. When we hit Normandy on June 5th? Bevan's expression hardens. That's when the real test comes. You'll send a message before the invasion, warning Berlin that something's coming. But the message will arrive too late, just like Operation Torch. Juan nods slowly. He's done this before. Then, Bevan continues, after we're ashore in Normandy, you'll tell them the truth they want to hear, that Normandy is the diversion, that Patton's FUSAG is still in England, still preparing to launch the real invasion at Pas-de-Calais. You'll beg them not to move their 15th Army from the Pas-de-Calais area. The audacity of it takes Juan's breath away. They're going to land in Normandy and then convince Germany to keep waiting for a second invasion that will never happen. Will they believe it? He asks quietly. Harris answers, they'll believe you. The question is whether Hitler will listen. March 1944. The reports begin over the following months. Garbo's network floods the Abwehr with intelligence about FUSAG. Agent 3 reports American 4th Army formations in Edinburgh. Agent 7A spots the insignia of fictitious divisions near Folkestone. Agent 5's mistress gossips about Patton's temperamental clashes with Eisenhower. Every report is corroborated by other double agents, by carefully leaked documents, by dummy radio traffic from non-existent headquarters. The deception is so elaborate that even Allied personnel in southeastern England sometimes believe FUSAG is real. Juan works 18-hour days, crafting messages that are detailed enough to be convincing, but vague enough to avoid specific claims the Germans can disprove. He invents quarrels between his sub-agents. Agent 3 demands more money. Agent 7A's reports become sporadic because she's begun drinking after her husband's death. Agent 5 worries his mistress suspects he's pumping her for information. These human details make the network real. German intelligence officers reading the reports can imagine these people, their greed, their weaknesses, their fear of exposure. In Berlin, the intelligence picture becomes clear. 2 invasion forces are preparing. One in southwestern England, the real one aimed at Normandy. One in southeastern England, the fictional FUSAG, aimed at Pas-de-Calais. German commanders must decide. Which is the real threat? Where should they position their reserves? Hitler, obsessed with protecting Pas-de-Calais, the shortest route to Germany, orders his 15th Army to remain in place. Rommel, commanding the Atlantic Wall defenses, is forced to spread his forces across 500 miles of coastline. unable to concentrate against any single point. June 35th, 1944, 10:05 p.m., Crespigny Road, safe house. Juan sits at his radio, sweat dripping. Despite the cool evening, his fingers tremble on the Morse key. Across the channel, at this very moment, 150,000 Allied soldiers are boarding ships and aircraft for the greatest amphibious invasion in history. He begins transmitting. Urgent, urgent. Agent 3 reports massive movement of troops from Scottish bases toward South Coast. All signs point to imminent large-scale operation. Estimate invasion within 48 hours. Likely target Normandy beaches or Brittany coast. Require confirmation from other agents before sending detailed report. Garbo. The message is deliberately cautious, hedged with qualifications. It's accurate. Invasion is indeed imminent, but vague enough that Germany can't pinpoint exactly where or when, and it's time to arrive too late. Juan finishes transmitting at 11:47 p.m. By the time the message is decoded, forwarded through Abwehr channels, and reaches German High Command, it will be June 6th. The invasion will already be underway. He sits back, exhausted. Phase 1 complete. Now comes the hard part. At 3:02 a.m., Harris appears at the safe house door. His face is grim. Radio conditions are good. Berlin received your message at midnight. They decoded it by 1:30. Hitler was awakened and informed. At 2 o'clock. Juan's stomach drops. They got it before the landing? By about 3 hours, but they did nothing. Hitler's standing orders require confirmation before waking him for alerts. By the time they decided to wake him anyway, paratroopers were already landing in Normandy. Harris sits down heavily. It's still too early. They might still reinforce Normandy with everything they have. We need Phase 2. We need them to believe this is a diversion. Juan looks at the clock. 3:17 a.m. In Normandy, Allied soldiers are wading through surf under withering fire, fighting for every yard of sand. Everything depends on what happens next. June 9th, 1944. 3:00 a.m. Crespigny Road Safe House. Juan has not slept in 4 days. His eyes are bloodshot. His hands shake as he pours another cup of tea that's gone cold. Outside, London is dark under blackout regulations, but inside this room, Harris and Mills sit with him at the table covered in decoded Abwehr messages, situation maps, and the carefully constructed script that will determine whether D-Day succeeds or fails. The invasion is 3 days old. On the Normandy beaches, Allied forces have established a fragile foothold, but German reinforcements are beginning to arrive. Panzer divisions, SS units, Hitler's reserves are moving toward the battle. If they all reach Normandy, the mathematics become impossible. The Allies will be crushed. The 20 Committee has made a decision, Harris says quietly. We're gambling everything on one message. If it works, Germany keeps 20 divisions sitting in Pas-de-Calais waiting for an invasion that will never come. If it fails, he doesn't finish the sentence. Juan nods. He's already drafted 17 versions of this message, each word weighed for maximum psychological impact. This isn't just intelligence reporting. This is manipulation at the highest level. Berlin is furious about the delayed warning, Mills adds, sliding across the latest Abwehr response. They're questioning why you didn't alert them sooner. You need to address that first. Turn their anger into something useful. Juan reads the German message. Arabelle, your late warning useless. Invasion already underway when received. Explain. Delay. Your reliability questioned by High Command. Perfect. They're angry, defensive. looking for someone to blame for their failure to stop the landings. Juan picks up his pen and begins writing the most important message of his career. I cannot accept your accusation of negligence. I transmitted warning based on intelligence from Agent 3 at 2147 hours June 5th. If your radio service had operated efficiently, you would have received this before the invasion commenced. I must protest in strongest terms the attitude of high command in questioning my reliability. My agents have risked their lives. I personally have worked without rest. To be accused of negligence when failure lies with your communications is insulting and demoralizing to my entire network. Harris reads it and whistles softly. You're scolding them. I'm making them defensive, Juan corrects. They must believe I'm the aggrieved party, that I did my job and they failed. Only then will they trust what comes next. He continues writing. Despite this treatment, my duty to Germany compels me to report the following critical intelligence. Agent 7A confirms FUSAG remains in Southeast England with no reduction in strength. Agent 5's War Office source reveals that Normandy operation involves only 15 divisions. Repeat, only 15 divisions. Second and larger invasion force under Patton remains positioned against Pas-de-Calais. Present landings appear to be diversionary operation designed to draw German reserves away from actual target. Mills leans forward. That's the poison pill. You're telling them Normandy, where we've just landed 150,000 men, is the diversion, and that Patton's ghost army is still coming. Will they believe it? Harris asks. Juan meets his eyes. They want to believe it. The Normandy beaches are the worst possible landing site. Terrible weather, strong defenses, no nearby ports. It makes no strategic sense to invade there unless you're creating a distraction. We're giving them a narrative that explains their failure to stop us. Not we were incompetent, but this is all part of an Allied deception. He adds a final paragraph. I believe present operation is designed to draw maximum German forces to Normandy, while real invasion prepares to strike Pas-de-Calais with overwhelming force. Recommend High Command not weaken 15th Army position. Second invasion likely within 2 weeks. Garbo, Harris, and Mills exchange glances. They're asking one exhausted Spanish chicken farmer to convince Adolf Hitler to ignore the largest military operation in human history. Send it, Harris says finally. God help us all. June 9th, 1944. 7 to 22 a.m., Abwehr Headquarters, Berlin, Oberstleutnant Karl Erich Kühlenthal sits in his office reading Arabelle's message for the 4th time. As the Abwehr's Spain section chief, he's handled the Arabelle network since 1941. He's paid them over $8,000. He's built his reputation on their intelligence. And now they're telling him that the largest amphibious invasion in history is a diversion. He should dismiss it as fantasy. Every rational instinct says so. But Arabelle has been right before. About North Africa, about Sicily, about convoy movements. The network's intelligence has consistently proven accurate. More importantly, the message provides an explanation that salvages German competence. Not, we failed to defend Normandy, but Normandy was never the real target. Kühlenthal picks up his phone and calls Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr. Within 3 hours, Garbo's message reaches Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Commander-in-Chief West. Von Rundstedt forwards it to Hitler's headquarters with a note. Source: has proven reliable in past. Recommend Arabelle assessment receives serious consideration. June 10, 1944, 11 a.m., Berghof, Hitler's Alpine retreat. Adolf Hitler sits in his study overlooking the Bavarian Alps, reading intelligence summaries. His generals want to move the 15th Army from Pas-de-Calais to Normandy. They argue the invasion is clearly focused there. 6 Allied divisions are ashore, more arriving hourly. But the Arabelle report troubles him. He's always believed the Allies would strike at Pas-de-Calais, the shortest route to the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland. Patton is their best general. Why isn't he leading the invasion? Unless Normandy is indeed a diversion. Unless the real blow is still coming. What do we know about this agent Arabelle? Hitler asks Colonel General Alfred Jodl, his operations chief. Jodl consults his notes. Spanish national, recruited 1941, network of 27 sub-agents throughout Britain, has provided over 400 reports, approximately 85% verified as accurate through other sources. The Abwehr considers him their most reliable agent in the United Kingdom. Hitler stares at the map of France spread across his desk. 2 choices. Concentrate everything in Normandy and potentially leave the real invasion target undefended. Or hedge his bets, keep forces divided, prepare for the real invasion at Pas-de-Calais. The 15th Army remains in position, he decides. Normandy receives only limited reinforcements. We will not be deceived by Allied trickery. Jodl salutes and withdraws to implement the order that will shape the course of the war. June 11, 1944. Crespigny Road, Safe House. The Ultra Intercept arrives at 2:00 p.m. Harris reads it twice before showing it to Juan, his hands trembling slightly. Hitler's personal order. 15th Army to maintain defensive positions, Pas-de-Calais area. Arabelle intelligence suggests second invasion imminent. All forces remain highest alert. Juan closes his eyes. 20 German divisions, 300,000 men, including some of Germany's best units, will sit in Pas-de-Calais waiting for George Patton's Phantom Army. Mills enters with another message, this one from the Abwehr directly to Garbo. Your reports completely vindicated. High Command recognizes your network as most reliable source in Britain. Recommend you for Iron Cross Second Class. Financial bonus authorized. Continue monitoring Patton's forces. Priority 1. The 3 men sit in silence, absorbing what they've accomplished. The greatest military deception in history is working. How long do we need to maintain it? Juan asks finally. As long as possible, Harris replies. Every day those divisions stay in Pas-de-Calais is another day for us to build up in Normandy. We'll keep feeding reports about Fusag through July, August, even September. Make them believe the second invasion could come at any time. Juan thinks of the German soldiers, sitting in their bunkers near Calais, watching an empty horizon, waiting for ships that will never arrive. He thinks of the Allied soldiers in Normandy, fighting for every hedgerow and village, who will face 20 divisions fewer enemies because of messages he typed in this room. We need to send an update, he says, pulling his typewriter closer. Agent. 3 reports increased activity around Patton's headquarters. Keep them looking the wrong direction. Mills pours whiskey into 3 glasses despite the early hour. To Garbo, he toasts, the man who convinced Hitler to defeat himself. Outside, London goes about its afternoon business, unaware that the war's outcome may have just been decided in a suburban safe house by a failed chicken farmer with a typewriter. July 29, 1944. Crespigny Road, Safe House. The radio message from Berlin arrives during breakfast. Juan is eating toast with margarine. Real butter is still rationed. When Harris bursts through the door, waving a decoded telegram, "They've done it!" Harris says, breathless. Hitler has personally approved it. Juan takes the message, reads it in German, then again in disbelief. Arabelle, in recognition of your exceptional service to the Third Reich, the Führer has awarded you the Iron Cross Second Class. This decoration is rarely bestowed upon foreign Trotpi agents. Your intelligence regarding Allied invasion plans has proven invaluable to German defense. Ceremony to be arranged when security permits. Heil Hitler. Juan sits down slowly. The Iron Cross, one of Germany's highest military honors, pinned to the chests of U-boat commanders, panzer aces, SS officers, and now awarded to a man who has spent 3 years systematically destroying German intelligence operations from within. You realize what this means? Mills says, reading over his shoulder. They're not just trusting you, they're celebrating you. Berlin thinks you're a hero of the Reich. Harris is already drafting the response. You need to sound honored, but humble. Play to their egos. Make them believe this strengthens your commitment. Juan composes the reply carefully. I am overwhelmed by this extraordinary honor. To receive recognition directly from the Führer himself is beyond my greatest hopes. This decoration belongs not just to me, but to my entire network of agents who risk their lives daily. We rededicate ourselves to Germany's victory. I only regret I cannot receive this medal in person, but security must remain paramount. Heil Hitler. Arabelle. The message goes out that evening. What Juan doesn't mention is the bitter irony. He's being decorated for intelligence that helped ensure D-Day's success, that kept German divisions paralyzed while Allied forces consolidated. Their Normandy beachhead. By late July 1944, the deception is working beyond anyone's expectations. The German 15th Army, 19 divisions, over 250,000 men, remains locked in place around Pas-de-Calais, watching for Patton's fictional Fusag. They've been there for 7 weeks, while the real battle rages 200 miles away. In Normandy, Allied forces have finally broken out of the beachhead. Operation Cobra has shattered German lines. American tanks are racing across France. But the victory might have been impossible if those 19 divisions had reinforced Normandy in June. We're not done yet, Harris reminds Juan during their daily planning session. The Abwehr still believes Fusag could launch a second invasion. We need to maintain that threat as long as possible. So Juan continues. Agent 3 reports Patton's forces conducting amphibious training exercises. Agent 7A observes landing, craft being repaired in Dover Harbor. Agent 5's mistress gossips about logistics preparations for a major operation in August. All fiction, all believed. September 15th, 1944. Horse Guards Parade, London. Juan stands at attention in civilian clothes, surrounded by British military officers in full-dress uniform. The autumn sun glints off polished brass and metals. Before him, a representative of King George II reads from an official citation. For services of the highest order in the prosecution of the war, demonstrating exceptional courage, ingenuity, and dedication to the Allied cause, His Majesty is pleased to appoint Juan Pujol Garcia as a member of the most excellent order of the British Empire. The MBE medal is pinned to his chest. Britain's honor for extraordinary civilian service. The ceremony is closed to press, classified at the highest level. The handful of officers present have been briefed on Garbo's operations. As the citation is read, listing his accomplishments in carefully vague terms, several men wipe their eyes. Lieutenant Colonel Tar Robertson, head of MI5's B1A section that runs double agents, shakes Juan's hand afterward. "You did something no one thought possible," Robertson says quietly. "You convinced Hitler to ignore the greatest invasion in history. Military historians will debate how many lives you saved. Tens of thousands. Possibly hundreds of thousands." Juan thinks of the German soldiers still sitting in Pas-de-Calais bunkers 3 months after D-Day, still waiting for Patton's Phantom Army. He thinks of the Allied soldiers who didn't face those 250,000 additional enemies in Normandy. "I couldn't have done it alone," he says. "Thomas, Cyril, the whole team, we helped with logistics and details," Harris interrupts. "But the imagination, the psychology, the sheer audacity of convincing Germany their best spy was feeding them lies wrapped in truth. That was all you." That evening, in the Hendon safe house, Harris arranges a private celebration. He brings out a bottle of Spanish brandy he's been saving since 1941, when Juan first arrived in London. "To the only man in history," Harris toasts, "who holds both the Iron Cross and the MBE. May Germany never discover which one you actually earned." November 1944. The network begins to close. By autumn, the deception is no longer necessary. Allied forces have liberated France. The front lines are approaching Germany itself. Even the most optimistic German planners no longer expect a second invasion at Pas-de-Calais. But the Abwehr doesn't know that Garbo has outlived his usefulness. They continue to pay his network, continue to trust his reports, continue to believe in the 27 fictional agents who never existed. Juan begins planning the network's dissolution. Agent 3, he reports, has fled Britain after nearly being exposed. Agent 5 is transferred to military service in Italy. Agent 7A dies of pneumonia, the same fictional disease that killed her husband 2 years earlier. One by one, the phantom agents disappear from the intelligence landscape, leaving no trace except in Abwehr files and in Juan's meticulous ledgers. "We need to close Garbo himself eventually," Mills says during a December planning session. "The war won't last forever. When Germany falls, Abwehr records will be captured. If they contain your real identity, you'll be marked as a traitor by every remaining Nazi." Juan nods. He's thought about this. In German minds, he's a hero of the Reich who helped fight the Allied invasion. If they learn the truth, that he sabotaged their entire intelligence operation, that he helped ensure D-Day's success, any Nazi fanatics who survive the war will hunt him forever. "We'll stage your death," Harris proposes. "An illness. Something. Believable. We'll send a final message from Agent 4, your radio operator, reporting that Garbo died of natural causes. We'll even have Agent 4 express grief. Maybe concern about who will run the network." "Make it malaria," Juan suggests. "I can claim I contracted it years ago in Africa, and it's returned." The Abwehr knows tropical diseases can kill suddenly. They won't question it. They draft the final messages carefully. Agent 4 reports Garbo's declining health through December. On January 3, 1945, the last transmission. "Regret to inform Arabelle died this morning from cerebral malaria complications. His dedication to Germany was absolute. His last words concerned the network's continuation. Awaiting instructions on operational control. Agent 4. The Abwehr's response arrives within hours. Deeply grieved by loss of Arabelle. His service to the Reich will be remembered. Maintain network until further notice. Recommend Iron Cross First Class be awarded posthumously." Juan reads the message and smiles grimly. They're going to upgrade his medal for a man who doesn't exist, for services that helped destroy them. It's done. he says to Harris. Garbo is dead. The network is dormant. When Germany falls, they'll find files showing their best British spy died of natural causes. They'll never know the truth. Harris raises a glass. To the death of Garbo. Long live Juan Pujol Garcia. May 8, 1945. Crespigny Road Safe House. The war in Europe ends at 11:01 p.m. Church bells ring across London for the first time in 6 years. Searchlights that once hunted German bombers now sweep the sky in celebration. Strangers embrace, in the streets. King George VI appears on the balcony of Buckingham Palace to wave at crowds singing, God Save the King. In the Hendon safe house, Juan Pujol Garcia sits alone in the dark, listening to the celebrations through his window. He should feel triumphant. The 20 Committee's final accounting shows Garbo's network sent 315 letters and more than 2,000 radio messages to the Abwehr. His intelligence influenced German strategic decisions at the highest level. Military analysts estimate his D-Day deception saved between 50,000 and 100,000 Allied lives by keeping German divisions paralyzed in Pas-de-Calais. But Juan feels only exhaustion and a creeping dread. Harris finds him there an hour later, still sitting in darkness while London celebrates. You should be out there, Harris says gently. You helped win this war as much as any general or admiral. I can't, Juan replies. No one can know who I am. No one can know what I did. This is the price of his success. Garbo's operations remain classified at the highest level. Britain's entire double-cross system, the captured and turned agents who fed false intelligence to Germany throughout the war, must stay secret. If the public learns that Britain controlled Germany's entire spy network, it could compromise similar operations against the Soviet Union, which is rapidly becoming the new enemy. The Official Secrets Act, Juan says bitterly. I signed it when I arrived in 1942. I can't tell anyone, not my family in Spain, not my children when they're older. I have to pretend I spent the war doing what? Managing a chicken farm? Harris sits beside him. You're right. Everything you did must remain classified. But that doesn't diminish what you accomplished. Tell that to my father, Juan says. He thinks I'm a coward who fled Spain and did nothing while others fought. He died last year believing that. The silence stretches between them. There's another problem, Harris finally says. The Abwehr kept meticulous records. When Allied forces overran their headquarters in Berlin, we captured filing cabinets full of intelligence files. Hundreds of references to Arabelle, to your network, to your reports. Those files are being analyzed now. Juan's stomach tightens. What do they say? They confirm what we already know. Germany trusted you completely. But here's the complication. Some of those Abwehr officers survived the war. They're in prisoner of war camps now, but they won't stay there forever. Karl Erich Kulenthal, your primary handler in Madrid, surrendered to American forces. He's being interrogated. Does he know my real identity? He knows you as Juan Pujol Garcia, Spanish citizen, fanatically pro-Nazi. He doesn't know you worked for us. But if he's released, if word spreads in fascist circles that you betrayed the Reich. Harris doesn't finish the sentence. Juan understands perfectly. Nazi sympathizers, SS men who escaped prosecution, fascist networks in Spain and South America. They would all want revenge against the traitor who sabotaged German intelligence operations, the man who helped ensure D-Day's success. I need to disappear, Juan says quietly. We've been discussing this. Harris admits. MI5 can help you relocate. New identity, new country, financial support until you're established. Where? That's your choice. Commonwealth countries would be easiest. Canada, Australia, South Africa. Or South America if you prefer Spanish-speaking. The key is that Juan Pujol Garcia must vanish completely. Juan looks around the safe house that's been his home for 3 years, the desk where he invented 27 fictional agents, the radio that transmitted the lies that helped win the war, the ledgers documenting every detail of the greatest deception in military history. All of it must be burned, buried, forgotten. What about my family? Araceli and the children? They'll come with you, of course. New names for all of you. New history. You'll tell them enough to explain the move, but the details of Garbo's operations remain classified, even from your wife. Juan nods slowly. Araceli knows he worked in intelligence, but not the specifics. She doesn't know about Garbo, about the Phantom Network, about the D-Day deception. She can't know. The Official Secrets Act forbids it. I want to go to Venezuela, he decides. I used to write reports about Agent 3 in Glasgow being Venezuelan. I spent 3 years imagining that country. I might as well see if my imagination was accurate. Harris smiles sadly. Venezuela it is. We'll arrange passage within the month. MI5 will provide $5,000 to help you establish a new life. After that, you're on your own. And my name? You choose. Something Spanish but unremarkable. Something that won't draw attention. Juan thinks for a moment. Juan Garcia. Drop the Pujol. Common enough to be invisible. Juan Garcia. It is. Harris extends his hand. It's been an honor, Garbo. Britain owes you a debt we can never publicly acknowledge. They shake hands. Outside, London continues celebrating victory, unaware that one of the war's greatest heroes is planning to disappear forever. August 1945. Southampton Port Juan stands at the rail of the SS Columbia, watching England recede into the mist. Araceli holds their 2 young children, trying to keep them from squirming. The ship's horn blasts, scattering gulls. Will we ever come back? She asks. Juan doesn't answer immediately. He thinks of Thomas Harris's final words at the dock. What you did will remain classified for at least 30 years, probably 50. You may not live to see your story told. 50 years. He's 33 years old now. He'd be 83 before the truth could be revealed. No, he finally tells Araceli. We won't come back. We're starting over. In his pocket, he carries 3 things. The British MBE medal, carefully wrapped in cloth. A single page from his ledger showing the complete network of 27 fictional agents, kept as a souvenir despite orders to destroy everything. And a letter from Winston Churchill's office, marked Most Secret, thanking the individual, known as Garbo, for services to the nation. Nothing identifies him by name. If someone finds these items after his death, they'll read about Garbo, but never know he was Juan Pujol Garcia. The Colombian coast appears 3 weeks later. Caracas rises from the Caribbean like a mirage. Juan stares at the city, remembering the reports he wrote from Lisbon about Agent 3, the fictional Venezuelan who supposedly provided intelligence from Glasgow. This is where it all started, he murmurs. With an imaginary man in an imaginary network. Now I'm here, just as imaginary. Juan Garcia, nobody from nowhere. They settle in a modest apartment in Caracas. Juan finds work managing a bookstore, then later a language school teaching English. He never mentions the war. When people ask what he did during those years, he shrugs. Clerical work in Lisbon. Very boring. His children grow up knowing nothing of their father's past. His neighbors consider him pleasant but unremarkable. Juan Garcia blends into Venezuelan society like a ghost. At night, sometimes, he sits on his balcony and thinks about the messages he sent. About Hitler reading his reports in the Berghof, about Field Marshal von Rundstedt making decisions based on intelligence from phantom agents, about 250,000 German soldiers waiting in Pas de Calais for an invasion that never came while Allied troops secured Normandy. He wonders if anyone in Germany ever discovered the truth. He wonders if Kuhlenthal, his Abwehr handler, died still believing Arabelle was a loyal Nazi who died of malaria. He wonders if history will remember him at all. Town 49. A letter arrives. 4 years after settling in Venezuela, Juan receives an envelope, postmarked London. Inside is a brief note from Thomas Harris. Kuhlenthal was released from Allied custody in 1947. He's living in Spain. We intercepted correspondence suggesting he still doesn't know the truth about Arabelle. He believes his best. Agent died faithful to Germany. Your secret remains safe. Burn this letter after reading. THH. Juan burns the letter as instructed, watching the paper curl and blacken in his sink. Safe. He's safe. The invisible man remains invisible. But sometimes, lying awake in the Caracas heat, he wonders, what's the point of accomplishing something extraordinary if no one can ever know you did it? The question has no answer. It's the price he agreed to pay. In London, in filing cabinets deep beneath Whitehall, classified files document Garbo's operations in meticulous detail. 50 years, Thomas Harris said. Maybe in 1995, when Juan would be 83 years old, the truth might finally emerge. If he lives that long. If anyone remembers to declassify the files. If the story hasn't been forgotten entirely. Juan Garcia. Once Juan Pujol Garcia, once Arabelle, once Garbo, goes to bed in his anonymous apartment in a foreign country, having saved tens of thousands of lives, having changed the course of history, and having received both the Iron Cross and the MBE. And no one, anywhere, knows his name.